Okay, so I've got 8 jars there. I don't know if I can get 8 jars of like that in there. You'd think I'd know after all this time, but besides that point. Now, I did try to salvage some of the seeds. They should still grow. What you can do, apparently, just put in the back of your mind, you have a green tomato, okay, you can take the rotten ones, let them get all gooey, right? Apparently it gets pretty putrid. And then you pick out the seeds, and because the enzymes within the tomato, they protect the seeds, they should still grow. Now, I've got we know we got a few more tomatoes kicking around in the greenhouse, so I'm not too worried about it, and I think I still got some old seeds from a few years back, but just in case I don't, I really like these tomatoes, so I'm hoping these will grow next year. And honestly, you don't need a lot of tomato seeds to get tomato plants, okay? And then this is from a different, those little ones, and then I've got some other ones sitting in a bowl that didn't make it. So before I throw them out into the compost, I'm going to go through and capture all their seeds, because those ones are ripened. I just didn't cook with them, didn't freeze them, didn't do anything, so they're just a seed bay. So this is how much I got left. Now, whether I do another batch or I just throw these in a box, which honestly, I just want to kind of keep it simple on myself, people. I'm thinking just dry them up, put them in my box in between paper, let them ripen, throw them in the freezer after they're ripe, and then be done with it. I am going to use the pink Himalayan salt. The thing about you... Oh my, look what happened. I'm spilling salt. What does that mean? What does that mean when you're spilling salt? I don't know. It means something. Anyway. It's okay. I can salvage it. Not going to waste. The thing about using this salt is it will retain its color in the jar. If you use kosher salt made for canning, which is completely white, you're not going to get any discoloration. I just wanted to point that out. So if you use Himalayan salt, you put it in your jar, and you see on the bottom, it's the salt. Okay, the color of the salt. So, because I did that with potatoes, and I'm like, why is that? What's that color down there? Yeah, and then I realized it was the salt. So you can see I'm not putting that much in there. Just enough. I like it. Now these ones I've done specifically for southern fried green tomatoes. That's exactly what these jars are for. Honestly, I find this to be very, very appealing. Just thinking about southern fried green tomatoes makes me, with my saliva glands, right, drooling for that. Hold on a minute. Okay, so I looked online. This is what you do if you spill salt. You take a pinch of it. Now I put the rest of it, because I'm not going to waste it, in here. Okay? So there is nothing gone to waste. The only reason it spilt was because I hadn't transferred this into its own container yet, and for whatever reason this opened up. So it wasn't done with malicious intent or done on purpose. But if you should spill salt, they say it's bad luck. But to offset the bad luck, you take a pinch, you see that, right? And you throw it over your left shoulder. There you go. Be gone. Do you hear it flying? Be gone. Okay, now the thing about this salt is it doesn't have iodine in it. So if you rely on it completely, thinking this is the more nutritional salt from your standard table salt, that is true. Same thing with the other gourmet salt that has extra minerals and whatnot in it. It's the white one that's damper, right? I have some right there. See? This is salt. This is a health foods kind. But if you had to choose between this one or standard salt or this one, it is recommended to can with this one. This one does not have iodine. But if you use it just as table salt and you don't mix it in with the salt that actually has iodine in it, which I have other salt, right? Then you're depriving yourself of iodine. So just keep that in mind. So if you're going to use Himalayan salt, find another salt that has iodine that you can mix in with it for your standard table salt so that you're not losing out on the iodine. And if for some reason you should spill salt, if you can remember before you Google it, just take a pinch and throw it over your shoulder and say, "Be gone." So, back to what we were doing. Alright? Now, I'm warming up my canner. So before I put my water in there, right, I'm going to bring it up to a 1/2 inch anyway. It's probably a 1 inch, but just push these things down. Okay. I'm going to bring the water pretty much right up to these. As a matter of fact, if I start filling this up now, the hot water is going to start cooking the tomato. And it's going to soften and settle a bit, which is good. And then if you need to, you can take out a little bit of water to bring it down to, it's probably a 1 inch from the rim. Right? Didn't Google it. I can't remember, and if I did, that was a few days ago. So. And then of course you have to debubble a little bit, right? Otherwise your jars will pop. Now you have to cook these things for at least 40 minutes in a water bath with a lid on a boil, but it doesn't have to be a mad boil. Okay, you can bring it up and then turn your burner down to about an 8, where it's a nice rolling boil, because 40 minutes on max is too much. By the time you get your jars out, you don't know what you're going to get. If you do it on 8, after you get it to that initial boil, chances are your jars will be fine. Alright. So the other ones, I'm just going to dry them off and put them in between paper in that box. I'm going to ripen them, just throw them in the freezer after the fact. Or maybe I'll dehydrate them and make tomato powder, but probably not, because I've got tomato powder somewhere around here in some jar that I never use, so why would I do it again? I wouldn't. Not until I find that one and see if I want to use it. If it was something that I would use all the time, then yeah, so be it. Okay, so if you can't get your little stick in there, this is what I use chopsticks, right? Another trick is just to tap your jars like this on a cloth, and it helps to, or shake it a little bit. Alright, so I'm going to let this sit like this for a few minutes, just to let that hot water soften up those tomatoes. I'm watching a series from Ciera, right? Ciera, about Armageddon. So I guess spilling salt in that situation and throwing it over your shoulder, right, is a good thing, because, you know, we got these super soldiers coming based on biblical predictions. So if you're like religious and you believe that stuff like hardcore 100%, well, I'm not saying I don't, because the stuff that's going on with the internet and with these politicians, do you see how I put the water in there and this one kind of went up a little bit? With these politicians completely out of control and not even being real human beings, don't be surprised if we don't have super soldiers running around in the neighborhood soon enough, because I don't know, the world is going down a bad way right now. But I'm trying to stay positive, and I'm trying to help my friends stay positive as best as they can. So just giving you ideas what you can do. Now in this, see, like this might be too high, right? So I'd have to either cut that in half, which that's probably what I'll do just to keep it simple on myself right now, versus cutting another tomato. Right? Just try and keep it all at the same height and push them down. You see, the hot water came in, so you can push them down a little more. Wandering eye. Like that. And then wipe your rims. See, this one needs a bit more water. See, this one's good. Do you see how this one settled down? Right? So yeah, this is good. I'm impressed with this. I'm looking forward to cooking with it. With spilt salt and all. Right? So yeah, how do you protect yourself from super soldiers that are out to get you? Right? You know, you try and do the responsible thing, right? You do food prep so that if a natural disaster happens, like an earthquake, or, you know, a hurricane, or something like that goes through, like something natural, right? That governments can't control, right? So that you don't become a burden on the system, and actually you might even be able to be, you know, part of the solution in terms of if something like that was to happen, and the police were to come to my door and say, look, you know, we've got 3 children and, you know, mom, but unfortunately dad didn't make it. Can you take them in? Because, you know, it's mayhem out there with all these broken down houses and power lines down and this, that, and everything else. I could take them in, people, and feed them. That's what I've been saying, right? Like, I could do that. And then some. I can still help people, right? That's what I mean by being part of the solution. Versus now, in what, October of 2020, what, I'm sitting here thinking, well, okay, if, you know, I can ride the storm with the cost of food rate rising because of this political coronavirus, everything on lockdown, and things not being shipped out, and blah, and blah, and blah. You know, I can compensate for that pretty good, right? I think I've done a really, really good job. You know, I'm not a burden on the food bank. I'm not any more of a burden on my government than I am and have been in terms of being on social assistance, right? But outside of that, you know, if something happened where, you know, food became a little more scarce or extremely expensive, I could still manage. And if need be, help people, right? A few, not a lot, but a few, right? So, you know, but why should I have to worry about super soldiers that have been spliced and diced with foreign DNA, whether it's an alien DNA that came from space, or whether it's an animal or a sea crustacean or something like that of a DNA, to make them super soldiers, right? And worry about them coming and raiding my house. You know, you wake up one day thinking you're living in a democracy in a country that's supposed to be one of the best countries in all of fucking the world, and now you're finding out that you're living in some sort of movie, right, that literally aligns itself to a nightmare, and you have no way to protect yourself. I don't have guns in my house, people. Right? Most people in Canada don't have guns. You know, unless they're hunters. They go hunting. If I had time to go hunting for a moose, I'd have a gun. But outside of that, I've never felt I needed to have a gun. Right? Because I live in Canada. We've outgrown that tribal shit. But go into my videos and you'll hear me say, welcome to the new Congo, with what's been going on with my family, with the medical kidnapping and, you know, wrongful apprehensions and murder and cover-up and illegal embalming with illegal and organ harvesting. I mean, that's shit that goes on in the fucking Congo. And now, right, I'm watching shit where, you know, predicting Armageddon with super soldiers because the Bible states it under this section and that section. And what do? I spill salt. Because for some strange reason the bag was open. But I took care of that. Right? Bling. Right? So, but you know, like even yesterday when I was downstairs, or was it yesterday? It was yesterday. Or yeah, like how do you protect yourself? You try and do the responsible thing. And now I have to worry about fucking super soldiers coming to my door at some point in the near future. Because it's happening in Australia, right? Crazy shit's going on in Quebec, right? The United States is teetering. And what do you say to the super soldier? Well, you know, gee, really, I'm not really a bad person. I can bring you in and give you a meal, assuming that you eat real food. Like, do you even eat food? Do these things even eat food? Besides us people? Right? Like, what do they eat? Like, that's what I say when I was downstairs. Like, maybe what I'm doing is pointless. I did it all for the right reasons for it to end up being pointless. Right? Because nothing is stopping this political agenda. Nothing. And if they actually do, and I do believe somebody's mixed match bunch of DNA from this and DNA from an octopus and DNA from a fucking spider and DNA from a freaking monkey and DNA from that, put it all into one big petri dish and fucking clone themselves. I don't know, monsters, people. Monsters. And that's what they're releasing out into society. Because we have psychopaths managing our politics. Hunting us down, killing us, eating us, and using our bodies as receptacles for their science experiments. That's what happened to ShaMay. That's why they didn't want us taking pictures to document exactly what they were doing to her body. Just remember that. Now, I made this about a 1/2 inch from the rim. Might be too much. So you know the secret around that one is you just have your rings a little tighter. Because if it's that much of a problem, it's going to pop off the ring before it will crack the jar in the canner. Okay? Because it's going to want it. The liquid that is coming from the tomato is going to expand. It's going to push out, right? So you don't even do it finger like that. Okay? You just go like that. So it's loose. Okay? Like that. Just enough. And if you want, you could, just to keep the lid on, being that they're on so loose, you could put that on top. Because if it's going to pop, the lid up, right? This is light. Alright. There's little tricks you learn along the way. So instead of going like that, where it's kind of screwed on, it's because it's nothing more than finger tight. You just barely, because as it's bubbling, cooking, the jar, the lid, it loosens, right? Now I know I said I wasn't going to do this in terms of walk you through this, but whatever. I'm tired today. But I'm going to have to go outside and do a lot of shit here. Start tomorrow a little bit anyway. And then be gung-ho. Hopefully it won't be raining too much this week. I don't like working in the rain. No. Alright. Now after this, then I'm going to get into that juice. And then after that, then I have just one more batch of grapes with a few apples, more than likely, because I'm going to do that with Amari again. And then I'm done. I'm putting it all away, people. Oh, I'll be so happy. Right? And then over the winter, I'll definitely cook over it. I'll cook with it, right? Show you. So that if you haven't started you'll see it, and you'll want for your own family or your own household. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. The only thing that I can say that maybe might not be necessarily 100% correct in there is there might be a ½ inch, a little bit too much water per jar. I probably should have went down one what is it called? 1 inch off the rim versus it's about a ½ inch or so. And at this point, I've done so much over the last 6 months. I'm on my last stretch. I'm not too worried about it. Right? I'm feeling good. I accomplished a lot, and that's the thing. I accomplished a lot, people, and I shouldn't have to worry about super soldiers that have been spliced and diced with God knows what, running around in my fucking community, terrorizing people because our so-called elected politicians aren't even real human beings. But yet, they're in control. This is why I say, don't vote. Don't vote for that. Don't vote for that. Send in your ballots as null and void. As a fraud. As a fraud. You're not voting for frauds. Okay? Unless, of course, you're a lizard person yourself. But there seems to be a lot of them out there because that's why they're communicating with their tongues. And their shit. Right? So hopefully whatever we're going through will calm down and everybody's imagination station is just running wild. And it's nothing more than that. Because none of us, absolutely none of us, unless of course you're a bad person, but the majority of people are not bad. Nobody deserves what's going on. Nobody. Just remember that. Okay? Nobody. Okay, so we're going to see if that little trick of mine worked, okay? In terms of, if you feel that your jar is just a little bit too high up, right? Again, don't do it finger tight. Just do it where it catches. Okay? Because as the pressure builds in the jar and liquid escapes, okay, as long, you know, two things are going to happen. The lid is going to pop off, and that's it. Your food is compost, okay? Or, if it's on too tight and nothing can escape, the jar will crack, and it will be in your canner. Which is like, you know, it happens from time to time. Outside of that, though, everything is good. So we'll wait and see what happens. Now, being that this spilt, I'm going to look for another jar for this. I just haven't bothered to put it in a jar yet. Right? I normally have them in glass containers. But I've been busy. It was just sitting here. Right? So, and here's a jar right here. Here's an empty jar. If it would have been in the empty jar, that wouldn't have happened. And I'm not necessarily superstitious. But, like I said, we took care of that problem. I'm more worried about super soldiers than about salt that didn't go to waste. Didn't go to waste. Still have it. It goes down to some salt is better than no salt. Right? See, I have salt all over my house. I got salt where you wouldn't even know I have salt. Okay, I stocked up on salt. If something really bad happens, I can barter with salt. That's how much salt I have in the house. Providing I don't get raided by those super soldiers. Right. I mean, that's pretty pathetic when you have to worry about shit like that. I'm trying to figure out how I can go buy a gun. But it's a long process. And honestly, I would feel very foolish going to a gun store saying, I want to buy a gun, getting my license, assuming that I can get one these days because the government's taking away everybody's human rights, and then bringing my gun home just so I could fend off super soldiers. Right? Thugs, well, I would suspect that the cops would take care of the thugs, right? But super soldiers? I don't know. So there you go, right? If I would have done that, I would have saved myself the stress. And then the rest of it could go in here. But remember, there is no iodine in this salt. So I have to look for the other salt that actually has iodine in it. But there you go. Now it's nice and full. And it's one less thing off my counter now. I get to put all this stuff away. Right. And apparently, if you leave salt out in a bowl, here. I have salt rocks around, but just for the sake of it, we'll leave this little bowl of salt here in here for now. And pick up all that negative super soldier energy. These little bags, I like them, although this one's compromised because it opened for whatever reason. Right? You know, I like to reuse. And in this situation, it's sealing. Now it's sealing. Now it's sealing. So maybe somebody opened it, used it, and didn't close it right. Could have been me. But in this situation, these are nice little bags. So I would, before I throw that out, I would save that. Just throw it in with the rest of the bags. You might need it one day. Right? I do believe that we're going to have a shortage if we keep with this direction with glass items. Things with jars. Well, we already know the canning jars are disappearing, right? So, keep that in mind. Shop. When you go shopping, look for things that are actually in jars. There. Problem solved. Okay, so I'll be back, I guess, with the grapes. Okay, so just for reference, now, I have done this before where I've actually wrapped up tomatoes in between pieces of newspaper. Honestly, I don't like doing that way. I find it doesn't really work very well. I find just doing it, I'm just changing this, putting a new one on, right? That's from before. I've already thrown those other ones into the deep freeze. I personally just like to do it this way. Just layer them. That's all you really have to do. Right? They're wet, so I'll dry them, layer them, paper on top, another one, paper on top. Okay. So, there you go. These lines, when they have like that, don't put that in, right? Obviously. Cut that out and eat that, cook it up, right? So, I kind of want fried green tomatoes, so maybe I'll leave a couple out. I really want to try it breaded, so I'll leave those ones out, and I'll try and get to that. Like, I want to put those in the fridge so they stay nice, and then just fold that over, put another piece on. Not so much the color paper as the ink, right? Just keep it loose, that's all. You don't wrap them up individually. It doesn't really work that well. Right? Or at least from my experience back in the day, I prefer doing it this way. I find they ripen better. Just kind of loose. That's all you have to do. And then I put the box on the floor, and it ripens over time. You check it in a few days, a week, or whatever it is. And yeah. Okay, so there you go. That trick that I showed you with the lids, it does work, people. Not one jar popped. Okay, and in terms of the lid popping off, even though it wasn't finger tight, it was a little looser than finger tight. And that was only because I didn't have a 1-inch head space because, right? Anyway, it worked. So when you take these out, the thing about this is you got to try not to grab, wandering eye. You got to try not to grab the rim itself. You want to grab the jar. I better squeeze on. I'm not even squeezing. And when you take it out, you don't move it around. You just try and keep it as straight as you can. I'm going to show you how loose. Do you see how loose this is? You see? Finger tight with a little bit, maybe too much liquid, could pop the jar. Because if you notice, everything pushes up. Right? As long as you're, you see that rim, right? Do you see that? It could have maybe been a little bit tighter. But as long as your screw band is on, you're pretty safe. It's when you make them too tight and nothing can escape that becomes the problem. Okay, so now what's going to happen is I'm going to get on with this juice. I'll probably record that with this. And then I'll upload this video. And then that will be it for canning outside of that last batch. Yeah, these are really loose. Like, they're not even like really on. But the jars are popping. You just heard that. Alright. Hold on. Okay, so far so good. There's my little bowl of salt. Right? So it worked out pretty good. I would say so. Okay, so next day I never did get this done, but do you see what I'm doing now? Because this one here, I want clear juice. I tasted it. It kind of tastes like Tang without the sugar. So when I make it, I'll probably just put a half cup of sugar and that will be it. So I'm just going to keep doing this. I know it seems obnoxious, but I don't want to stir it up because I want, the goal for this time is I want that clear juice. So you can see how nice and clear that is. It looks like soup broth, right? And then it's 190 or a little above, right? For 30 minutes, okay? And it seals, and it does its job. Pasteurized, but I'm going to bring this to a boil anyway, right? Bring it to a high heat, put the sugar in, dissolve the sugar, and then my jars are in the oven. I turned off the oven. I turned back on the oven this morning. So whatever I get, and then when I get to the bottom, where all that pulp is, I'm going to strain it in a cheesecloth. Right? I'm just going to let it hang. And then the pulp, I don't know. Obviously, I'm going to get some kind of juice. So maybe I'll cook up those apples as that's straining. And then get a little bit of apple juice. Right? And then combine whatever grape juice I have with the apple juice. I'll can those 2 jars, 1 jar, whatever it may be. Right? And then I'll take the pulp of the apple, and I'm either going to mix it in with that pulp, and I'm going to can it in my half-pint jars for amari, mainly, right? Or I'm going to make fruit leather. I don't know until I get to that point, right? And then after that, this video is done. I'll upload it, and then I'm just going to... I only got 1 more batch of grapes, people, and that's it. I'm putting all my canning away. I'm so tired. It puts me behind on things, but it was worth it. I'm really looking forward to this winter. There's my jars there, sealed perfectly fine, right? And I don't have to worry about anything except for maybe a few more bags of flour and some more lard and anything else miscellaneous I might find that intrigues me. But outside of that, I don't really need anything, right? And then I'm just going to focus on the yard, and hopefully this guy will help me repair these things that need to be fixed up or built or whatever. See, this is going pretty fast. This will be at least hopefully 2 jars, but I've got different sizes in the oven, right? So there's a seed. Well, this part is not really a seed. Sorry, that's just the stem of the that's the stem. Alright. Okay, hold on. I'm listening to Doug Ford here with his announcement, with his support of businesses in Ontario with all these different types of subsidies, right? And basically the only thing these so-called politicians did was wipe out the little guys. They have wiped out competition. They have removed the competition that's centered around capitalism. Yep, that's what they've done. Yeah. Playing real dirty pool. Yeah. Okay. And even in the profit industry, it's very, very competitive. Right? They've wiped out a lot of little non-profits. Right? So that they can prop up their big non-profits and launder their money through those non-profits, like the Bill Gates Foundation and those types of things. Right? Yeah, no. This is, I don't know, people. I don't know what it's going to take for Canadians to... Well, they're being led down the garden path, though. That's the thing. They got these little PSYOP groups, you know, filing their lawsuits. And I'd like to see who's going to be the benefit of the lawsuit for British Columbia, Canada. Because I can tell you right now, it's not for each and every citizen of this province. Nope. It's just going to be a handful of people, right? So you give your money so they can get rich, assuming that it ever gets in front of an ethical judge. Because honestly, I don't think there is such a thing anymore. Nope. Nope. Two-tiered society, people. It's not a two-tiered system, it's a two-tiered society. And the government is wiping out all the little guys, right? Giving them the old okie dokie, you know, oh, we'll just help you out for the next 6 months. And then what? What's going to happen after 6 months, people? They're begging the public for you to go order food so it can be delivered to your house. How the fuck do you know if that restaurant is even clean? How the fuck do you know that their workers aren't sick or infected with something as they're delivering this food to you? Like, seriously, it's not like you can go in and look around yourself, right? You don't know. You don't know shit. But they want you to support those businesses to keep them afloat as they're giving money to them to stay afloat. As the little businesses, the smaller ones, are completely going bankrupt. No talk about that. No talk about all the bankrupt businesses. You don't hear any talk about that. No, you don't hear about no apologies. You don't hear about what's happening to those families. Nothing. You don't hear it because they're not going to tell you. Right? They're going to put out some little psyop trying to make you think that you can go take it to court and fight for your fucking freedom. A bunch of bullshit. I don't know what kind of world we live in. Honest God. Okay, so now I'm getting down to the pulp. So before I go any further on that, I'm going to stop. That will be at least... I have the old school jars, right? So I'll get 2 of those. Plus I have a 1 pint jar in there, so I might get that. This is what I have left. You can see. Obviously there's juice in there, but I have to juice it right through a cheesecloth. I just have to find a cheesecloth, so I'll be back. Hold on. Okay, so that's how much I got from this. You can see. So I don't know. I've only got 4 and a bit jars in there. So I'm just going to cook this all up and see what I get. Okay, it's pretty good. So just throw everything into one pot, bring it to a boil, fill up my jars in the canner. Hold on a minute. Okay, so basically what's happening now is I'm having, as usual, serious panic attacks. Like, seriously. It pretty much boils down to the yard more than anything, and just that psychological warfare after all these years with all these people that steal money from wherever they can steal it, terrorize and hurt and maim and destroy and kill just so they can get rich. Because that's, like I said, if you notice, the people that hurt my family the most are all the people with the so-called wealth. So anyway, I'm like, I can only do what I can in a day. And I'm trying to relax and just get on with, because I'm canned out, people. I'm home canning burned out. But I have to do this last little stretch because this stuff is so, these grapes, even doing it this last way I did it, is so good. So tasty. So that's the grapes. So now I've got those apples, right? I'm not going to completely squeeze out the juice because I'm going to, I still have jars. Lucky me. And if I really needed jars, I know where to find jars. But I have a whole case of the salmon size half-pint jars, which is basically all I need for what I'm going to make next. Now, mind you, if I do this again with the last batch of grapes, that's when I'll be scrounging around for any jar I can find. But for now, I've got a whole case that I'll have more than enough for what I need. So after I get these juice jars in my canner, I'm going to do apples. Now, I have a choice. I can either do Macintosh with grape, or I can do Gala with grape. But technically, anytime you make applesauce, you kind of want to use more than just one type. You don't have to, but they recommend it. So I think what I'm going to do, Gala is the milder tasting apple. So I've got 6 Galas down there, right? You can see how big they are. I'm going to peel them, and then I'll do, I don't know, 3 or 4 of Macintosh. Mix in the grapes, and then that's going to be my applesauce with grape for Amari, basically, right? Because those work out really, really good. Amari is a little beet baby. I've been feeding him beets. Boy, oh boy. He's just gobbling up those beets. Remember when I cooked up those organic beets that I bought cheap at the grocery store, and I baked up a whole big bin, like a roasting pan in the oven, and then I froze them? Well, I've been giving Amari that, and he really likes it. So anyway, we've got the 6 Gala apple there. I'm just too lazy to go downstairs and get more Gala. So we'll do the 6 Galas anyway. Probably maybe half Macintosh. And then the rest of this grape. That should be enough for about 8 jars to 12 jars of what I'm going to make for Amari, right? Half pint size. And then I don't have to worry about it until I get the last batch of grapes, which will probably be done in the next couple of 2-3 days. because it's getting cold outside, right? And I'm pleased with those. I just have to wash the jars, let them dry, label them, take them downstairs. And I'm just going around tidying up, gathering up stuff, right? You know, it's time now things are shifting, right? I still have to go outside. The sky is getting fixed here in the next couple of days, so I'm going to keep Amari yet for a couple of days because we're working with cats right now, right? Getting sky fixed. And then I guess on the weekend, oh God, I so hope it's not raining, people. That's when I'm back outside. But then that's when I get another batch of grapes. But that's my last batch. So I'm doing pretty good. Hold on. Okay, so I am not going to need that many jars for that. Now I did put 1 cup of sugar in there. And if you notice, just remember that, ladies. If you're having a jar shortage, you know what to shop for. So, I'm satisfied with that. 3 jars, people, right? See how it all starts to add up, eh? We still got our handy spare jar there. And now I turned off my oven. And I'm going to get these in the canner. I'm going to get my other jars that are like new in a box. I'm going to wash them. And once my oven is cooled down, I'm going to throw them in the oven. Sterilize them. Get on with the apples. Yeah, we're moving along. Look how nice that is. Okay, so who would have thought that jars would become collector items? Seriously. Okay, so they're done. See? Easy peasy. 1 more batch. Boy, oh boy. There's our trusty salt. Do you see it? Anyway, I went out in the front and I got the beans because the plants are dying now, right? So actually, honestly, I think I'm gonna can probably, because my canner's out, right? I don't like frozen beans. I prefer them canned. And some of these are not very thick. Like this is good to eat as long as you take out that string on each side. Right? Obviously these ones are for seeds, so we'll just leave them in the husks. We'll let them completely dry out. And then April, I'm going to send you a few, probably send a few to Lucy as well. Now I did manage to get into, I'm going to put this on me for a second. Hold on. I just came in from outside. Now it is starting to rain. Why are we not surprised? This is British Columbia, Canada. Anyway, what was I saying? I did manage to make a path into War Room 1. We all remember that room, War Room 1, right? And now that I can get in there, and I'm getting near the very, very tail end of everything that I've been doing in here for the last 6 months. Don't forget, I still got yard work though, right? What do you call it? I'm going to start packing up these boxes, okay? Because, you know, it's time now. So I'm going to throw in a few of these seeds. Because they're beautiful, beautiful red little flowers. And they bring high yield, right? But being that some of these, they're not like plump, but they'd be good for canning, I'm just going to probably can up. Well, I can get 2, maybe 3 jars, which is good for me. And then, because I went in the yard the other day, and I got beans that have been, like, hanging out there, right? Just whatever. I figure maybe what I might do is open them up. See, there's nothing inside. Very small, these ones. Some of them are big, though. But I need some for seeds, so I'm not too worried about it. What I can this year, I'm happy with. But those ones, I'll probably can. Because I don't, you know, I'm not cooking like that right now. I'm keeping meals in the house very simple for the most part. Although I am going to be making meatloaf. So I suppose I could cook, you know, between everything that I've got here, I could probably make just a little bit for dinner. But I think, all in all, I probably prefer to can these. And then just, you know, take them downstairs and be done with it. So now that that's done, those are done. Now we get into the apples, okay? So this time I'm going to cook the apples. Is the way I'm going to do it. Peel them. I'm going to start cooking them on my big trusty pot. I'm going to only half mash them. I'm going to leave some in little bigger chunks. That's what I'm going to do. And then I'm going to mix in whatever grape I've got. Got my jars in the oven. I've got 14 jars. I got 14 jars in there, so that should be more than enough. And if I have more than what I got for jars, I got those little teeny jars that I can fill up and freeze and do it that way as well. Right? So, what time is it? It's 3:15. If I work on the apples, I have them done in a couple, 2-3 hours, because I'm kind of moving slow, right? And then I'm going to do the beans. That's pressure canner, 25 minutes. But then once that's done, that's done. And then there's nothing to do except on the weekend, grab the rest of the grapes, divvy them up between my landlord. And then that will be the last batch of canning, and then I get to put all my big pots away for the most part. And then as I'm finishing up with a few things in the yard, hopefully Bryce will come and, work on the things that's easier for him to work on versus me. And then in my travels, I'm now working my way into War Room 1, and I'm going to start packing up those boxes with the goodies. Alright? With the goodies. Okay? And then I'll walk to the post office, and then I get to go buy flour, shortening, and maybe something else I might see. Okay, now I took out these jars a little too soon. I should have left them, but I'm rushing because they leached. I can feel it on the, they leached out. I can feel it on the towel. That happens. That's why it's important that you let it just sit in your canner for 10-15 minutes before you take out your jar, because when you bring it, and because my back door is open and it's cold, right, from hot to cold, it changes the pressure in the jar, and it, you get that vortex going, right? But it doesn't matter. The jars are still nice and full, so I'm feeling good about this. I'll probably get another 3 more jars of that anyway. I'll have to hunt around for jars for the next batch of apple and grape for Amari, which I'll do. I've got a few miscellaneous things around, right? And so we're coming to the end of the canning season here very soon, right? I'm just kind of moving slow. I'm so discouraged with everything in terms of what our governments are doing to us. It's one thing preparing, food storage and all that stuff for natural disasters. But it's another thing preparing for food, waiting for those super soldiers to show up and just annihilate everything based on, alien agenda that's been spliced and diced with that CRISPR DNA technology that they have nowadays. And they've been operating in secret labs, that type of thing. British Columbia, Canada is a very big province with lots and lots of mountains and trees and just forests, right? So if they wanted to set themselves up a cloning center or a splice and dice center or any kind of center like that up in the Kootenays, nobody would know about it, people, because we definitely have an infestation of something out here in British Columbia, Canada. So obviously I'm dwelling on it, right, because it disturbs me, because I don't know how to fight back on it. And everything that I've been doing lately just doesn't feel like it's going to get me anywhere in the great grand scheme of things, at least before, when I was just dealing with the natural disaster like Fukushima radiation well, or, an earthquake or something dumb like that. Then, I felt like I had a little more control of the situation. But these days, I can see what the government's doing. You know, it's an attack on the poor. Obviously, they're targeting women and children. They've been doing it for a long time. They're breaking up the nucleus family, you know, by any means necessary. You know, they're disconnecting people from each other because of their draconian social distancing laws and all this other crap without I don't want to say sound science, because in their minds, you know, they've got the doctor in front of the person's name, and therefore it makes them legitimate. But anybody can apply a doctor before their name, and just because they're a doctor doesn't mean that they don't participate in illegal activity, because all you have to do is think of Uncle John, think of Auntie ShaMay, think of Ciera and what just recently happened with Ciera. Okay, these are doctors that are doing this crap. Okay, they're participating in medical kidnappings. They're participating in the illegal embalming of bodies and harvesting their organs by any means necessary. Ciera is the evidence of that, okay? And when you get to that point in life, things like this, you know, what's the point? When you're just going to have the super soldier, the spliced and diced alien species, raid your house in a year and a half from now because you refuse their vaccination. Basically, because you don't believe in the hype. You don't believe in the propaganda. You don't believe in the old okie dokie. You don't believe in the lie because you've already caught the government in more than one lie. And it's been documented. Anyway, I'll be back. Okay, so I told you YouTube's working with the government. They corrected their little glitch, right? Because they, you know, they monitor the internet, right? So they came into the source code with their guru webmasters who make good money as taxpayers pay for this to cover their tracks in terms of being able to document when the live streams actually come up. Because that's all it takes, people, is just a little something in here so that the computer reads it differently. That's it. Nothing less, nothing more. Okay? I've done this for the last 2 times, and both times it's just coming in the front. But it doesn't really matter because I've already got like 10 or more of these live streams being falsely recorded, and then sitting on a shelf with fake statistics, fake death counts, or the whole 9 yards, and then restreamed days or over a week later. Okay, up to 2 weeks, because they round everything off into weeks. So if it says 1 week, it could have been 13 days, which is closer to 2 weeks. We don't know, right? You'd have to go right into the server itself and get into that nitty-gritty data. But anyway, they've bypassed where this used to come in here, and then it would jump how many cards before it would show up. Because what happened was, all of a sudden, this came on. And of course, you know, I'm sitting here because it's my inside day. I'm canning. And I'm going like this to catch them in the act. And of course, they know people are now paying attention. So they tweaked the code where they bypassed where it actually comes in, and it popped in here. It's done it twice in a row. So I would suspect that it's going to keep doing that. Okay? Because they don't want you to document the fraud, right? So if anything ever happens to me where I become a political prisoner because of the things that I talk about in light of splice and dice with the CRISPR technology and all this other crap that's going on, right, with our so-called elective leaders that are destroying millions and millions and millions and millions, literally destroying millions and millions and millions and millions of lives. If for some reason I ever become a political prisoner or a political hostage to that, I still have it documented that their live streams were fake. So, no matter what they do, they can't backtrack what's already been documented. That's my only solace in all of this. Okay? Seriously, because as I'm now I know this video is probably getting long because of all this canning, but whatever. As I do all this canning, trying to be responsible, do the right thing, blah, 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 blah. I mean, my biggest fear now are super soldiers that these individuals are unleashing onto the public without us even really being aware of it. And for the ones that are aware and take it serious and aren't a part of that society, we're the victims to that society. We're in this pile over here, right? What can we do to fight back, people? Right? It's going to take me months to buy a gun. If I was to go off and buy a gun, I have to get a gun license. You know, I got to go to the police station, explain why I want a gun. Well, I want a gun because I want to protect myself from you guys. What do you think the cops are going to say to me if I said that to the cops? Because that's basically what it's about, right? I'm not worried about the local thugs or my neighbors in the neighborhood. I'm really not. I'm worried about the fucking police, the military, and the government because there's something wrong with the majority of them, right? Which goes right back to the public union sector in general. The only people who have ever really hurt my family have been individuals who have worked for the government. John Duncan's sister, Eleanor Gilding, was a nurse. 40 years, reputable immunization program. I'm sure her eyes look like lizard eyes, right? That's why she's always lurking around in the freaking dark, right? The people who injured Ciera and threw her into a freaking 8 years of horrid drug addiction after she cleaned up her act for Andre, right, were people who worked for the government, right? The people who medically kidnapped Uncle John were people who worked for the government. The people who didn't protect ShaMay and do the right thing by ShaMay's dead body, all of them worked for the government and used taxpayers' dollars to pillage her body and her teeth, people, as they illegally embalmed her body in a hospital to hide the fact of what they'd done. And then they probably auctioned off that body because of the way they had it on display for 9 days so something else could move in. Something that's not like us, but walks among us and pretends they're like us, as hundreds of thousands of individuals, including children, go missing, literally missing off the planet of the earth every year. And what are these so-called government workers doing about that? Nothing. Because they're involved, people. And this is what they do. They're constantly going around covering their fucking tracks. Coming in with their psyops, with their black budgets. So when I say political prisoner or political hostage, I'm not kidding. Because that's how I interpreted the situation. Now, do I want super soldiers showing up at my door in a year and a half from now? No. But you know what? I've already had them in my life, people. That is the point. What do you think was guarding the door when Ciera was supposedly, quote-unquote, dead? What do you think those things that were walking in and out with their, it's an investigation now because, we need to push you out and deny you access to your human right, to your daughter's body, so that we can take it to a public hospital and pillage it and say that we're doing a good fucking job. After it sat in a body bag for 19 days, then they said, are you going to come pick it up? Please. No. She was in a snuff movie, people. Trust me. She was in a fucking snuff movie, because that's what British Columbia, Canada is about with these Satanists out here that are spliced and diced with freaking CRISPR technology. Okay? Because that's all it is about them. Money, 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 and dead bodies. That's why we have almost 200 people dying every month from fentanyl, because they got to keep up with that money, 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 and recycling those dead bodies with whatever the hell they're doing with them. Okay? When you're dealing with people like that, trust me, they can afford to pay YouTube to have their webmasters come in and tweak the code to protect their fucking asses as they continue to lie to the public. Right? As I sit here thinking, well, maybe I should go buy a gun, but I have to get a license first. And just because I know how these individuals operate, they'll be like, well, before you can get a license to carry it or have a gun, you're going to have to go to the police station and do a, what is it called? Criminal check. And you're going to have to explain yourself why you want one. And as soon as I say, well, because I'm trying to protect myself against you guys, you think they're going to let me buy a gun? Yeah, okay. So I'm a sitting duck, but I've been a sitting duck for years. That's why so many of my family members have been injured over the years. Because that's what they do. If they don't injure you one by one, a little at a time, they fucking grab you off the streets or kidnap you in fucking hospitals or wherever they can find you, and you disappear. And then you just become a statistic. It's for them to say, oh, well, they just wanted to get on with their own life. Yeah, right. No, their lives were taken from them, people. And they became food for something else. Or a receptacle for something else to move in. Or a science experiment for some sick agenda. So anyway, every now and then, if I'm up around this area when they're doing this, but the last 2 times it's been coming in, I predicted it. This is what they would do because they have the resources to do it. It's already been confirmed that YouTube doesn't work with the YouTubers. They work with the government, right? They are a propaganda machine, and they have their key players that lead the general public down the garden path with their lawsuits or their fake reports, fake statistics. But when you zoom in, you look at their eyes, try and understand their language, you begin to see that we're not dealing with normal human beings with 100% human DNA, okay? All right? A lot of these individuals that are representing themselves as our local politicians, trust me, they're dead. They've been murdered. Nobody has stood up for their deaths, and they've been replaced with a clone, with a hologram, with a synthetic something that's not a robot, right? You know, BC is deep in bed with the Communist Party. We have the triads out here that flourish, that have flooded this province with fentanyl. And the only people that benefit from all this death, mayhem, hurt, and everything else that comes with it is the government and their employees, outside of a few partner groups under contract.
Together to keep our interaction safe, and the work that the public health teams are doing to follow up on individuals. Each day and month that you choose to do the right thing, you're helping to protect all of us. You're in keeping our important activities and places open and safe. And just as we did this past weekend, let's continue to find new ways to support each other and show we care at a safe distance. Please take a moment today to think about what you are doing and what you can do to make yourself and your family safe. Let's remember that we are stronger together by staying apart.
So,
and we will get through this.
Did you hear that?
Did
you hear that? What can you do to keep your family safe? What did I just say? I want to go get a gun license. I just said it. That's what I want to do to try and keep my family safe. I'm not going to go off and buy a gun illegally. I'm not stupid. Right? But I wanted to buy a gun years ago just as to top off with the food preparation, right? Because when you're a food prepper, you that's what they do, right? But it wasn't no urgent need, because if it was, I would have had my license and my gun 4 years ago. I don't. But now, with everything that's going on, I mean, how do you live your life like this, people? When you feel that you have to defend yourself against them. The RCMP, right? Or local police, your government, doesn't matter if it's hospital staff, coroners, right? Any of those kind of people, doesn't matter what ministry it come from, they're all the same, basically, right? They all got the same shot in the arm through Eleanor Gilding, because that's what she does. She goes around and immunizes all of them because they're required to get their shots because they're government employees. So whether they agree to sign up for this shit, they don't get a choice if they want to keep their jobs. So if they got infected with something through Eleanor, nobody would know about it because it would fall under that black op budget that the government controls, right? And now, you know, I mean, it's obvious that it's connected to the UN, right? They've all been replaced with synthetic bodies that operate like robots, right? And can only shed crocodile tears when it's appropriate to push forward their agenda. But outside of that, they're all heartless, they're coldless, they're soulless, they're just like walking dead, really, when you think about it, right? Because they're not productive, except for their key group of people like them, individuals. They're not people, individuals like them, right? It's that goes down to that two-tiered society, right? Manufactured poverty, right? And because there's more of them, they need more poor people to prey on. So don't be surprised in another 5 or 10 years from now, the numbers of missing people in the United States of America doubles based on their feeding habits. Okay? Based on their feeding habits. Because they're multiplying. Because they're in control. Right? Just saying. Okay. Oh, hold on a minute. Okay, so I'm going to end this video on this, people. You know, like, society, I don't know, two-tiered society, right? Us humans, we're not taking it serious. These guys, they do, because, like I said, we're the dinner, right? That's why manufactured poverty is so rampant everywhere you go. Anyway, this was just done, I don't know, recently. And I guess the NDP is leading in the polls right now. I think this election is supposed to be in 2 weeks. Now, I've been busy, we know that. So, I am going to follow up on this. Okay, but I'm going to end this video on this, though, okay? Because it makes me just sick. Okay, it literally makes me sick. Because I'm a victim to the lies. Okay, now I got this on slow speed. And I just want you to watch. And listen too, because he actually clacks. Right? Just hold on a minute. Okay, here we go.
First of all, British Columbians.
Next question is from Sheila Scott. I just more on the sticky situation up in northern BC. A lot of controversy around how this has happened. I know you were asked about it yesterday, but were the equity rules from your own party broken in the way that this has unfolded?
Okay, you could literally hear him doing that. Now, his opposition is, who is he? Where is he? This dude. Okay? Who, in my opinion, okay, now, I've got a picture of him back in 2015 where he looked like an extremely old man. And then he shed years and years and years off his face. However, he kind of looks like Gordon Campbell. And I'll show you.
Of fantasies about their child care plan, including that the Green Party blocked them from proceeding.
Don't forget, we're having an election here, so this is what they're doing. They're doing their campaigning on the internet.
Which is a complete nonsense.
With their little backdrop green screens and God knows what else, tricks up their sleeves.
The NDP love to come up with excuses for non-performance. We do not provide excuses, we get things.
Okay, you can see what he looks like, right? Now let's go look at Gordon Campbell. There's Gordon Campbell right there. Right? This is the premier that brought methamphetamines into the province in 2001 when he invited Bill Clinton to come over and shake hands with him. That's how methamphetamine came into the province of British Columbia, Canada, and then it found its way into elementary schools, right? So that it could be targeted specifically against kids who had learning disabilities, right? So that they would become the next generation of drug addicts in the province of British Columbia, Canada, that are now, 20 years later, dying off like flies. Okay? That's the handiwork of this individual. He works for the Queen now.
So I saw you.
Hold on a minute. Okay. That was just a bunch of news crap. Anyway, he works for the Queen now. Right? He screwed up the province. Right? Brought in a lot of corruption. I'm looking for him. Okay? He screwed up the province, right? Brought in a lot of corruption, cut a deal with the drug lords in China with the fentanyl and the heroin, and with Bill Clinton with the meth. Okay, my daughter Ciera was a victim. There was no such thing as methamphetamines, right? Attacking 11, 12, 13-year-olds and turning them into basically lifelong addicts until this guy showed up. Okay? And then he's got his sister who kind of looks like him too. If you look at them, They all kind of look the same. Don't you think? I think so. Because they're synthetic, people. They've been replaced with something that's more than likely being manufactured in the Queen Charlotte Islands, being that it's so remote. This is British Columbia, Canada, okay? Up a little further north, where currently they have over 5,000 Chinese workers bringing in their LNG line. Not Canadian workers, but Chinese workers. It would be very easy to bring in a cloning center or some lab that uses CRISPR technology to create clones to keep the agenda more forward. Right? This guy, though, like, seriously, man, he is like one of a kind. But he's no different than them. That's what I said. This is a two-tiered society. Okay?
In the best interest of all British Columbia.
That is a direct lie. Any of them, if they say that, it is a lie.
Next question is from Sheila Scott. I just more on the sticky situation up in
Did you see how fast that went?
A lot of controversy around how this has happened. I know you were asked about it yesterday, but were the equity rules from your own party broken in the way that this has unfolded?
Okay, so you heard that.